So yeah, once again, I do appreciate you making time for me. Once again, it's good to be chatting with you again about another crazy ass bonkers movie.
Thank you. Crazy ass bonkers is what I do.
Yes, absolutely. So, if I read correctly, no sooner had the film Steamboat Willie fallen into public domain, you announced you were doing a movie on it. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, the Steamboat Willie went into public domain January 1st, 2024, and January 2nd we let loose to the world the idea that we were going to turn him into a mischievous miniature murderous mouse and a horror film starring David Howard Thornton.
How long had you been eyeing off the whole property before deciding you wanted to do it? Because obviously you'd put a lot of thought into it.
Yes, well, it's something that I we knew after the mean one we wanted to Chucky, I love the mug.
Yeah.
Got it. You could see the clear inspirations in our film and some of our puppet work. We knew that Steamboat Willie was going to come into the public domain, and we knew that after the mean one, we really wanted to do a follow-up that would be bigger and sillier and funnier, but also take a character that people loved and sort of do something horrific with it. And so as we were looking around to see what would be the thing we were going to do next, we said, well, it's not in the public domain yet, but Steamboat Willie might come into the public domain. And so we sort of been circling it and thinking about it. And as we got closer and closer to January, it became clear, oh my goodness, this thing might actually happen. And then January 1st, the clock strikes midnight, the clouds parted, and a script landed on my desk, fully finished. Who knew such a thing was possible? And we went right into work on going from development to preparing to make the movie.
Amazing, amazing. And like you said, it's much bigger than Mean One. It's immediately slicker. It's got such a great aesthetic and tone to it. Can you talk about the production design of this one? Because it is so cartoony, and yet I feel like you filmed some on location. Obviously, you've done some in studio. What was your intention with the design?
Yeah, well, we really wanted to start by bringing the film into a very real, very tactile sort of New York City feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
We wanted the underbelly of the boat to feel smoky and mechanical, and when you're actually in New York City, we wanted you to see sort of those icons and feel the fog. I mean, most people think of New York, they think of that iconic skyline, but they don't really think of just how foggy it gets, and especially on that bay. I've taken that boat. I'm from Staten Island originally, so I've
Mm-hmm.
taken that boat thousands of times. And sometimes you're just on this thing, and it's so murky, and all the skylights are blooming, and it's really spooky. So we wanted to sort of start there and make sure that the whole thing felt real. And then as the movie progressed, and the mouse starts coming out doing more and more crazy things, then we start drifting into sort of this magical realism and something that's maybe a little bit more fantastical, but always grounded in practical filmmaking. We're on a real boat. He's a real mouse. It's a real guy in a suit and a real puppet and, in camera blood and gore. And so we wanted it to feel as realistic as a miniature murderous mouse could be.
Yeah. And, like, is there any hesitation for David coming on board? Like, I feel like he's really carving up a bit of a legacy for himself with these sort of roles. Was he there from the get go?
We had David all in before we even had a fully formed script, because I sort of pitched him the idea, and of course we had worked together on the mean one, and I pitched him the idea, and I said, "Here's the story we're trying to tell. Here's my vision for the character," because it was critical that we brought in someone who could bring this sort of
Mm-hmm.
cartoony, live action cartoon to life. And so we knew that we had to cast this person before we fully finalized the script because otherwise not everyone can do what David does. But
Yeah.
David was all in right from the get-go once he knew sort of what we were going for, what the tone was going to be, that it was going to be scary and silly, but also serious and with a lot of heart. So he was all in and he sort of helped us develop it. He came on the boat, even though he's obviously much larger than Willie is. He came onto the boat and sort of worked out some of the movements and some of the kills. He did all of his own whistling. And his performance and his sort of his ideas behind the character really informed the way that Willie was going to grow and evolve, or I guess shrink. And so, he was just such a big part of the DNA of that character that we had to lock him in early. And as soon as we knew he was on board, then I could really have fun with writing the script.
100%, man. God, such a fun movie. Was there any pushback right from the start? Like, you've announced it the second it's gone public domain. Like, do you suddenly get, people from the other camp saying, hang on a second, not realizing, shit, we're about to have the Mickey taken out of us?
You would think that, but really no, honestly. I mean, it's been something really cool. I get more people, whether it's online or in person or otherwise, I get more people saying like, "Hey, we support you. This is awesome. Don't worry what anybody else says." Than I actually get any kind of hate mail or pushback, be it from a corporation or a person or otherwise. So yeah, things have been going great. I mean, the fact is, if you even take a look at the film for just a second, there is the idea of this movie that maybe us as creators we have some issue with Disney or that we're going to ruin Mickey Mouse. But the fact is, we love these characters. It's a love letter to them. It's a a loving nod. We're like sort of poking fun at this thing that we really care about. So, I think that. As much as there might be an inclination to push back on our movie, anyone that sees it would see sort of the love and respect for the source material. Yes, he's a killer. Yes, he's a monster. I don't know if Walt Disney would appreciate what we've done to his character, but I think he would appreciate the spirit in which we did it because it's indie filmmaking. It's, creating something people said would be impossible, and we're having a lot of fun doing it.
Look, I don't think you can trash Disney any more than they're doing it to themselves at the moment anyway. So
They're making some choices, that's for sure.
Is it true that the ferry itself was owned by Pete Davidson and Colin Jost?
I can't comment on who owns the ferry or how we got it, but I can tell you that making a movie on Staten Island and being from Staten Island, we were so grateful that sort of the Staten Island community came together and helped myself and the Fuzz on the Lens team and all the Staten Island and New York City crew that made this movie sort of make it happen. But whether or not you are able to Google or do even the slightest amount of research that leads you to the conclusion of who owns the boat is, it's
Yeah.
anyone's guess.
I would hypothesize it's such a weird thing for a celebrity to own, in the first place. But anyway, can you talk about how long you had a lease on the ferry? Like, how long did you spend on it to shoot?
Yeah, we shot on the boat. We had about, thankfully, I've ridden the boat, not just all of the ferries, because they're all different models, but I've ridden that exact ferry was the boat I took in my childhood. It's the boat that I used to shoot sketches on when I was in high school. It's a boat that, I used to commute back and forth to college on. So I'm very familiar with the boat, and there's also lots and lots of photos. But we actually only got about a week and a half to 2 weeks of prep on the boat to sort of get it ready to shoot. Because even though it was docked, it's still, the thing is massive. It seats 3,000
Hmm.
people. There's the captain's deck. There's the engine's room. It's all just bigger than it looks. Benches and benches and benches. So we had about 2 weeks to prep on it, and then we shot on it for about 4 weeks. Then we did another week to 10 days of studio work in a water tank.
Hmm.
We did some time on an LED wall. We did some things at a factory to help us capture some of these elements because we want to do a lot of in-camera practical filmmaking to make Willie seem small, and that means forced perspective, putting the actors far away from each other and having them interact and sync so that they look different sizes. And some of those things need to be done in a studio because you have to build different size props and things. So we were all over the place, spraying blood everywhere, and yeah, it was great.
Oh, mate, sounds like a really fun time. If you're making a movie, you may as well make one like this, I reckon. Can,
That's right. Well, there's one shot in the movie where I think it's in the trailer, where there's like a bright light. The ferry is moving, and there's like a bright light shining, and it shines right at the camera. And people are like, "Man, how did you get that shot?" And so we're on a tiny little second boat in the bay. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning on this tiny little boat, and I'm yelling at the boat driver like, get closer, and that shot, the light shines right at the lens because that's the ferry pulling the horn saying, get out of the way, we're going to run you over. Like we're because we're just this tiny little boat. I don't even think we're supposed to be out there at night, just like, okay, get closer to the ferry. I mean, it's such a wild time. Like no one should ever let me make a movie because that's just we do the craziest things. So fun.
Let's talk about the look of Steamboat Willie himself. How many designs did you go through before you got the one that we see, and do early designs resemble the actual Willie that we had all those years ago?
You know, it was a lot. There was a lot of elements because we worked with two different teams, right? We started with Christian Cordella, who's an amazing concept artist. He's done Marvel movies, he's done the DC movies, monsters. I mean, all kinds of crazy Top Gun, like all kinds of crazy, amazing things. And he really started with not just the original design, but also with the story and the narrative. And we're able when you work with a concept designer, you're able to look at just the hands. How do the hands look? How are the claws going to look? And that starts to inform sort of the kills. And well, in this kill, he has to do this. And then we went to take those designs and brought them to Quantum Creation Effects, who physically built both the suit and the puppet. And that was where we got to look at the different kinds of fur. How dirty is he going to be? How big is the scale? Because the design is not just meant to exist on a piece of paper, it's meant to go on the guy that we've cast. So originally, there were some designs that looked really, really, really like 100% accurate to the cartoon. But what we started to realize is that version exists in a theme park. And if you're going to cast someone like David, who needs to whistle, who needs to be able to raise his eyebrows, move his ears, move his nose, you can't really have him have this big sort of fake plastic head thing. So we started pulling inspiration more from like a mouse and a rat than from what you would see at an amusement park, because even the most amazing animatronics, something that big, you lose all of the expression of the actor. So at that point, anyone could be in there. So, we really wanted to make sure that the functionality of it was as big a part of the design as the way it looks, because the heart of Steamboat Willie is David Howard Thornton, and he needs to be able to perform.
Yeah, 100%. That's a fascinating insight into that. And like, I do love that you throw back to the original design with your animations, because that was just...
That's right.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
As a comedy lover, I was really surprised to see Joe DeRosa in there. Obviously, also Brian Quinn doing these cameos, but I knew Brian Quinn was going to pop up, but I had no idea right beside him was going to be Joe. How the hell did you get them to cameo and get so slathered and covered in blood?
Well, they're both big horror fans, which a lot of people don't realize, because they're so known for their comedy. Is They like horror, they like, of course, like zany things that are left to center, and they were in town while we were shooting, and they had talked to some of our other producers and were saying like, "Oh man, tell me more about that." It didn't even have a title at that point, but like, "Oh, you're doing that Steamboat Willie thing, right?" And so I had written a much smaller role. I believe they have names in the movie, but their original roles in the script were Handsome New Yorker #1 and Charming New Yorker #2, just because we weren't sure who was going to play these roles, and they were written really small for someone to pop in and do one line. And as and I talked to them, I said, "Here's the role, here's what we're going to do." They said, "Oh, that's great." And I said, "Don't worry, you're not going to get, you don't have to get bloody or hosed down or any of that stuff." And they were like, "Oh no, we want to. I've always wanted to get covered in blood in a movie." And I said, "Well, we've got the blood gun. So if you want to get covered in blood, we'll cover you in blood." And so they showed up and they got hit with the blood, they got hit with the water. And it's just so funny because we didn't end up using the footage. The only way to get the blood on someone's face where it looks like they've been sprayed with blood is to spray them with blood. The amount of time it would take to paint that on by hand, it's like we kind of just got to hit you with it, So we have this footage, but I think it's much funnier for them to just pop up covered in blood already. Yeah. So I had to spray these poor guys with blood, and it's like the footage didn't actually make it into the movie. So it's going to be in probably some kind of deleted scene somewhere of the two of them just like 3, 2, 1. Ah! I was hosed down by the blood gun. It was a really fun day.
Oh, I love it. Love it. All right, a couple more questions for you. I am fascinated to know what your favorite kill in the movie is. And don't say I love them all. You got to pick one.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I think my favorite to watch people, to be like in the room and see people singing, is definitely the kill with the deckhand, who has a surprising I don't want to spoil too much, but he has his surprising interaction with Willie and meets his untimely demise. I think that one's the most fun to watch, but the most fun to do is definitely the captain. Yeah. I mean, when the captain, his death is just such an over-the-top amount of blood. It involves every single effect we could possibly do. The puppet, David, oversized props, LED wall, green screen. I mean, it's everything. And then he gets to do that iconic Steamboat Willie moment, whistling at the wheel. I mean, the whole thing just came together so well. The orchestra's playing, the strings, and the blood spraying everywhere. And it's like just the culmination of the vision, bringing Steamboat Willie to life. That's my favorite.
That is a great moment, especially the whistling at the wheel. Oh, hilarious. If I can compliment you, my favorite kills, sometimes simple is best for me, and I absolutely love the forklift kill. I think that was
okay. Great. Yeah.
Just it's like someone that's been to film school. I'm just there behind the camera with you, and I'm like, oh, I just love the simplicity of that. And the electrocution scene, like that was just for me glorious, absolutely glorious.
Thank you. It's a very easy way to, well, not easy, but it's a very quick way to sort of clear the deck because that was the biggest problem. A haunted house movie only works if the house is empty. So if it's filled with people, like why don't they all just work together? So we needed one scene that would sort of clear the decks and let us move on and clear the decks. We did.
I love how you put that. I love how you put that. All right. So final question. You've done the Grinch. You've done Mickey Mouse. Have you got any others in mind now moving forward?
You know, I have to feel really compelled to do another public domain character. I have some other movies that I'm certainly kicking around my head and things that I'm looking at potentially doing next. I think if I was to do anything else, it would be another Screamboat because I just love this character so much. I love playing in this world. I love some of the other potential characters that we could incorporate into these movies. And it, as much as there are lots of other characters coming into the public domain, I think there's plenty of stories left to be told with Steamboat Willie on the Staten Island Ferry. So maybe that's a non-answer, but that's the way I want to go.
No,
sure.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. That's a great idea. I would love to see that. Thanks so much for having a chat. It's the second time we've had a conversation. Love what you do, and really enjoy talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks for digging the movie.
We're not alone.
I heard stories about a monster that lurked in the underbelly of the ferry. After 90 years, he's actually out in the public. Steamboat Willie.
It's the happiest place on earth.